Hey guys, episode 3. It's hard to believe we're finally here. The third episode of AutoTalksUS. What feels like eight years, maybe a
I
decade in the
know.
making. We're finally here. So, with that
About
being
time.
said, yeah, dude, like we're here, we're live. Guys, I want to introduce a really special person. He's my first guest on the show. He's also been just a great friend for over 4 or 5 years now, ever since I moved to Dallas. Josh Jones. Josh Jones is a just I don't even know how to describe you. You're everywhere there's exotic cars, you're involved. You insure probably 50 to 60 to 70% of all the exotic cars I'm aware of in Dallas. There's probably even more. So I wanted to bring you on the show today to basically tell our audience what the hell is the world of automotive insurance all about? One, how does it work? Who are the players? How do you navigate the waters of insuring what is probably one of your most expensive assets next to your house? These collectors that you and I both share in common, their cars are not their toys. They are parts of their investment strategy. They are things that they enjoy regularly. And so they need to be insured just like anything that's worth a lot of money. So I wanted to bring you on so you can tell us all about how that world works.
Appreciate you having me on. It's been a while. We've been talking about this for a little minute. So it's
Yeah,
good to finally get it going. But
it's absolutely amazing, man. Thank you.
so I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head. There's insurance for regular commodity cars, and you've got insurance for these assets that are potentially going to be collectible and appreciate that people enjoy. It's their hobby. They're passionate about it. So you kind of have to delineate the two between commodity cars, just consumable cars, excuse me, and collector cars, and how they're going to be used and who's going to be using them. That's generally the first way that I approach my conversations with these people is how are you going to use this car? What is it? How are you going to use it? If it's something that you're going to drive back and forth to work every day, you're going to put a bunch of miles on it. That's fine. There may be a time and a place in your life where you rock a Mustang and drive it back and forth to work every day, and that's totally fine. But you
Sure.
might be at a point where you're 65 and ready to retire, and you've got your heart set on a Shelby GT 500, and that's not the car you're going to drive every day. That's going to be a car that you're going to collect and wipe it down with the diaper and take it to the country club, and that's going to be your baby. It's going to be the
Show
one
her
that you
off.
put a car cover on, and so that's ultimately what we're talking about.
Hmm.
Is that type of demographic. Really, the world of insurance has changed a lot outside of the collector insurance market. The collector insurance market, which to me is just a few companies like Haggerty, Grundy. You've probably heard of like American Modern. They are they've been pretty consistent in terms of what they're covering. Uh, the main thing that they're really looking at right now is the same losses that every insurance company is looking at in terms of risk is wildfire and flooding.
Sure.
So you've got states like California and Florida where um, their tolerance for risk has really it's shrunk because they don't want to put themselves in a position where they're having to pay a lot of large losses in areas that are prone to wildfire and flooding. So
Have you seen all those videos of the
California and
people
Florida.
trying to get their cars out of the garage, like running back to the house? You saw that video, of the guy with his 911, right?
Yeah,
He left
the
he
guy
left the
getting the
Tesla behind and hopped in the Targa. So
yeah, go
do
grab
videos
the
like that
SD
do,
as fast as you can.
do videos like that when they surface on the internet, do when insurance companies catch wind of these viral videos, does that have any effect on it? Like if a disaster hits a particular part of town, you see your clients like scuttling, running around trying to save their cars. Does that induce any kind of anxiety for the agent?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's looking at that like, okay, well, how do we prepare for this the next time something happens?
Hmm.
And as a result of that, we have seen things like, um, for example, Haggerty has a hurricane evacuation plan. So if, for example, you live in an area that's close to the ocean, you're close to water. A lot of these guys that have these really nice car collections, they live in some pretty exotic places on the beach or
The Palisades,
yeah, the
Malibu.
Palisades up in LA, Hollywood, whatever. There's a big anxiety, if you will, that goes
Mhm.
along with that. How are you going to get these cars out if we start seeing wildfires? Where are they going to go? Where's the garage location? Who has access to them?
Oh yeah,
If you have to move them, who's going to move them? Are you going to self drive them? Or are you going to put them on a trailer?
good point.
So it comes with those risk locations come with a lot of subsequent questions, some additional supplemental questions, like
Mhm.
what's the plan if something, if the stuff hits the fan, how are we going to get these cars out?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't consider that. So, like, if you have 10 cars in your two, and you have like you live in the Palisades or Malibu or something like that, you've got the main house and then a garage behind it, totaling 5 vehicles or totaling 10 vehicles that are worth millions and millions. Are you and the client during the deal talking about those types of scenarios? Who's going to be getting the cars out? The basically just worst case scenarios. Do you guys go over those worst case scenarios?
We
Given
do, yeah, we
wow,
absolutely do. I mean, California, like the Orange County and those areas, all they inherently present wildfire risk, and so underwriters, whenever I start bringing the quote to the underwriters that are potentially going to write that policy, those are the first questions that they're asking. So, who
yeah,
has access to the car? And the reality of it is, they're not really excited to write in those areas because they have had some large losses. So they're going to ask a lot of questions
mm,
because they're trying to sort of limit or restrict their risk
sure.
by having a bit more difficult barrier to entry.
That's interesting. Aside from, I guess, the events found in nature like hurricanes, wildfires, stuff like that. What else is a pretty serious? Um, what else can like really, really, really turn someone's world upside down when they're insuring? Those types of those level of cars. Maybe not a Toyota Camry. If it gets totaled, you'll get that payout. But what if you've got a $5 to $10 million collection? What other disasters can really screw somebody up?
I think
Rob,
really,
theft maybe.
yeah,
Is theft a big one?
theft is a big one. I guess the other thing that sort of comes to mind is just who has access to the cars, right? If
Mm-hmm.
you're in a situation where you've got a bunch of cars at the shop club, or sort of a community. For those that don't know what that means, like a community, a gated community that's got sort of an HOA presence or a collective security team that monitors who comes in and out of a facility that's storing high end collections.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big thing that we want to know. Who has access to these cars? Can somebody, do they move around? Are they on a trickle charger? If a car has to get taken off a lift, who moves those cars? So
Oh,
those are the other things that we're sort of looking at from a risk management perspective. Is if
sure.
cars are moving around a shared facility, who has access to those keys? Who's moving the cars?
You don't want some porter, who's an hourly rate, move this Lamborghini, you know, scratch something, and then it's a huge issue, or worse, falls off the lift, God forbid, and
Right.
you got an 18-year-old who just started to work and pushed the wrong button, and now this
Right.
$400,000 car is
I mean,
gone.
that's going to be kind of your location risks as a whole. And
Mm-hmm.
then you've got household risks. Like, do you have a young driver in your house? Do you have any um, inclination to speed, or have big
Oh.
accidents or tickets that you've got on your profile?
Mm-hmm.
So
I
that's all.
imagine a lot of your clients probably have a few speeding
A lot.
tickets.
Yeah, I mean, a lot do, and then a lot there's, probably the same ratio of clients that are just really chill with their cars. They take them
Yeah.
out, they drive them responsibly because it is a big investment. But I guess where I was going with that is you've also got some of these guys that have a young driver in their household. So you may have somebody that's got I don't know, let's call it me when I was 16, right? If you've got dad that's finally got a Corvette or a Camaro or something that's kind of fun, that's always an exposure, right? You know,
Mm-hmm.
you want to take that car out and show your buddies in high school and
Go to prom.
go to prom, and those are always things to consider, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a good point. I tried convincing a guy I did a photo shoot with in high school to let me take his GTR to prom. And his insurance wouldn't let me,
How'd
but
that go?
he was down, but his insurance wouldn't let me. True
Yeah,
story.
the insurance companies, like these companies like Haggerty and Grundy and whoever else, they have a driver exclusion. So basically, the only people that are covered on that policy, and in some cases, and it's not this way with every policy, but in some
Mm,
cases, it's what's called a named driver policy. So everyone else's, by the nature of that policy language, is excluded because we've already underwritten the risk with the named drivers that are in the household. Everyone that's touching that car, those are the
mm.
named drivers. Everyone else is an excluded driver.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah. I also had my restricted license at the time. So in Kentucky, you get your permit at 16, your restricted license 6 months after that, which doesn't let you drive at night. And then you get your full license. So I had my
Mhm.
restricted license at the time in 2013, and I was asking him, I was like, could that be the reason? He's like, yeah, they didn't really tell me, but that's probably what it is. Would have been fun though.
Yeah, that would have definitely been fun. Yeah.
2013, that the year of the facelift, when they did those LEDs that have the long lines in the headlights instead of
Is
the.
that so? You said Skyline? Yeah.
It
The
was
GTR?
yeah, it was in 2013, and he got it the year prior, so it was the 2012. And I remember in 2012
Okay.
they redesigned the front end. They introduced those little fog lights, the little strip lights in the bottom bumper.
That's a R34,
Five.
R33,
Well,
R30.
technically,
Okay,
yeah,
I'm
just
sorry.
the modern GTR.
Man, yeah,
It's
the
been
new
out
one.
for 15 years,
Yeah,
Josh. Come on.
exactly. The new one. I mean,
Actually, longer than that.
20 years old now, right?
Freaking crazy. Yeah, it's like, why mess with it if it works?
Yeah, I was about
Dude,
to.
another question I had was like, if you work with the exact same insurance guy over and over and over, and you start adding vehicles to your collection, is there kind of like I don't want to call it like a reward, or is there an incentive to keep working with the same group
Sure.
as you
So,
go on your automotive ownership journey?
yeah, that's a good question. So, a lot of the so we're talking about risk overall here. So,
Hmm.
if you've got a collection of cars, and let's say that you go from a collection in the ballpark of maybe 500,000 in value, and let's say
Sure.
that your collection grows over the course of a year or two, and now your collection value, total collection, these are all of your cars. Maybe you bought one really big one, or I don't know, 10, cars that are maybe 20 to 50,000,
Okay.
and you go from a $500,000 value up to $1 million value. Certain companies will have a different rating tier based on the total collection value, because what you're essentially doing is you're not any more risky with one car that's a really high value versus 5 or 10 cars that are a collective value with more of a value,
Hmm.
because you're only really taking out one car at a time, right?
Sure.
So the risk location as a whole, if they're all at one place, is not really more of a risk than it is if you've got one car versus 10.
And you demonstrated being safe because as from a risk perspective, with your current collection, you've had no issues for 5 years. Now you add more to your collection. It's not
Right.
making you any less responsible as an owner either.
It actually looks a little bit better, like you're more of an expert collector. So
Mm.
it for what it's worth, a lot of the insurance companies will look at that like, okay, well, he's got 10 cars that are insured with us. He's only going to take out one at a time. Our risk here is relatively low because he's not pounding out 10, 15,000 miles on a car. He's got maybe 1,000 miles on a variety of 10 cars, right?
Got it.
So there's definitely some reward to it by having your total collection value increase. It gives you a little bit of a price decrease per car that you add, if that
Hmm.
makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. Cool. So let me switch topics really quick. I totally realized we jumped right into like because clearly this is an exciting topic for us both, so we jumped into it. Why don't you tell the listeners how you and I got in touch and and basically because my background is photography. Everybody here knows that. So
Right.
how in the world did automotive insurance and my photography link?
So I just saw your photography on social media. I thought it was great. And so I think I might have reached out to you through social media and said, "Hey, why don't you come meet me at this event that I'm hosting?" Or I'm a little fuzzy on the details because it's been a few years.
I think that's how it went. I think that's how it went. Yeah.
Yeah, and just over time we saw each other at various events that we both participate in, and then uh, a, a few years later, or maybe even not that long, I think we did a client photo shoot with one of my clients that had a really special Aston Martin,
Mm-hmm.
and highlighted that car. It was a really unique spec, and we've done some photo shoots together. I don't really know what the exact timeline is, but we've done some photo shoots together where I leaned on your creative intelligence to be able to help me get some photos for some clients that we wanted to do just for fun. And through that, we've networked together. We've
Yeah.
introduced each other to other people. Your friends that were collectors that had great car collections, like I don't know, the guy with the XJ220 and the XR15s, and I've been able to introduce you to some of my friends that have businesses that are
Yes.
in the automotive space. So
Well,
um,
that's exactly right. So it goes to show that networking in the automotive community will basically reward anyone that wants to actually put their best foot forward. When I moved here, man, I was very very timid, and all I had was my camera. But I think
mhm.
you actually kind of you kind of got me out of my shell with your event. Cars and CoVerica is like probably the best Dallas-based car community event, just because of that the community that you curated, right? Like it's the same smiling faces, and you can't wait to run into them because you are not you're no longer by yourself. You're no longer alone. I think I met a lot of really fantastic people through your insurance work, and then I got to take pictures of their cars for them. They obviously love the pictures, which is actually a great segue into my next question. When people are shopping for cars, in your opinion, like I have a consulting business, so I obviously help people find sports cars that they like. You have to insure those sports cars. Do you see people leaning towards one maybe type of sports car more often than the other? I guess
That's a really good
let
question.
me rephrase the question. What are you seeing right now that's becoming a little bit more popular than maybe when you first started? Because I am
Uh,
noticing a trend in my customers. The types of cars that they're wanting to buy now are definitely not the cars they were buying 10 years ago.
well, yeah, kind of twofold. One of the things that I'm seeing, and you may look at this as part of a tax benefit, but the SUVs, man, like the heavy SUVs that people consider a sports car. It's not really a sports car. We don't insure it like a sports car, and you
Hmm.
don't use it like a collector car. But it's hard to tell a guy that a Lamborghini Urus is not a sports car, right?
Or it's even worse when you tell them it's really just a Q8.
Right. Yeah. Well, or I don't know, the Bentley Bentegas and the Aston Martin DBX, the Porsche Cayennes. They're
Cullinan,
the Cullinans, right?
worst
So it,
depreciating. Oh, I'm not even going to go into that.
yeah, well, that's a conversation we could have at another time, but that's a whole different half hour or an hour topic. But yeah, we see a lot of that. So where a lot of these people get in trouble is an SUV doesn't insure like a car because an SUV doesn't get used like a collector car. So I see that ad nauseum every day. It's definitely a sore spot because they don't really fit in the same category as, like, I don't know, let's use the Shelby Mustang for an example.
Yeah.
That's a car that most people are going to have as a third or a fourth car. It's going to sit in the garage until Saturday when Cars and Coffee comes around, and that's going to be your weekend car,
Hmm.
right? Okay, transitioning into the second part of your question. What I'm seeing a lot of people doing now, people want analog cars, Vipers, Corvettes, Camaros, Ferraris with a manual transmission
911.
and V12. The battery operated like dual clutch flappy paddle thing, like that's I think that's becoming less appealing to a lot of guys that want something that's a very engaging car.
Yeah.
A 911T, something with a manual gearbox and three pedals, man. I think that's a thing that's hitting people that maybe used to drive a manual and now they've gotten into this incredibly fast car that's got all the power that they've ever dreamed of and more. And now they just want something that they can just row gears in. And
Dude, you're nailing it because the everything that the Doug DeMuro did a fantastic little segment on this on I think his podcast where they were talking about the manuals slowly starting to come back. And I said this a long time ago. It's like you can make the transmission as fast as possible. What are you doing to make the driver faster? If you're not Michael Schumacher, you're not able to. You're not going to be shifting a manual transmission at the speed of that dual clutch. So if you're not a performance driver and you can't extract the performance out of a dual clutch, why do you need it? Why do you need something that shifts that fast? It's not going to help you get around the track any quicker.
well,
It
and
makes the drive on the street a little less boring because you're not involved anymore.
exactly. And most people are never going to track their car. Most people, that's my opinion. I could be
What's
wrong,
the
but
percentage? I'm sure you know.
I mean, I'm just guessing. I don't have any data,
Take
but
your book. Take your book for example. How many of those guys?
less than 10%.
Wow, really?
Yeah. I mean, most of these guys
Even
are
your
gonna.
Subaru BRZ Corvette fellas?
Well, that's a little bit of a different type of car, right? That's a little bit
Hmm.
more intended to be flogged on the track.
Yeah.
Um,
But your
but
supercar customers maybe 10%
yeah, your
or less.
supercar guys. I mean, you're looking at a $2,000 or $3,000 day if you take your McLaren out to the track. But at the time you spend your money on tires and pads and maybe track day insurance, that's a big expensive day. Whereas
Sure. Yeah.
if I take my car out, I mean, I may get 5 or 6 days out on a set of tires on my car.
Wow.
And yeah, it's cheap operating costs.
Front and rears or rears only?
Yeah,
What do you
the
what
whole set.
oh,
I'd
the
probably
whole
get
set,
five.
yeah.
Yeah,
Now
probably
you've got a couple track days under your belt, so maybe
yeah.
we can pick your brain a little bit about that because you're obviously the guy who has to get the awful news that I just binned my car. How deep of trouble
Yeah,
am I in? But you're also the guy that's taking his car to the track,
I
so
am.
there's
Yeah.
something to be said there for not the fear factor doesn't have to be as high. Am I right there? The fear
There
factor
are
of going to the track as a newbie doesn't have to be as high as it used to be.
no, absolutely not. There's some really excellent courses that are in our backyard in the North Texas area that allow for a person that has zero experience to go
Hmm.
out on the track with an instructor, have a good time, drive a car, and kind of find the limits, learn some car control and some basic techniques about how to drive fast, but
Hmm.
do it in a really safe environment where if you make a mistake, forget where a turn is, brake too late, wherever, uh,
Hmm.
you've got some runoff. You're just gonna go clip some grass. It's
I
not
like how
like
you picked two very specific things that can go wrong.
I'll,
Who do
I'll
you
be
know who
I'll
has?
be specific, right? Yeah. I mean, it's never happened to me ever,
So
right?
about the track and the course and the instructor thing, that's pretty standard that you really do have that community that's going to help you on your first day. But what about on the risk management side before you decide to have your first track day? Let's say I've got a BRZ or a Corvette. What moves am I making to make sure that I'm not at risk here?
So you have the option to buy per day track insurance. That is something that is offered.
Hmm.
It basically is a very high deductible, and so call it 10% of the value of your car.
Okay.
And it's pretty expensive. It's pricey, but some people feel like it's a good thing to just kind of have in their back pocket in case they make a catastrophic mistake. They wad up a car, they hit somebody else. I have never seen that.
Hmm.
In all of the times that I've done track days, it's always been a pretty well orchestrated, very controlled event.
Hmm.
But it is something that some people want just to have that peace of mind. But that's one thing that you could start with if you wanted the track day insurance. But I guess was your question more alluding to
Yeah, yeah.
how do you prepare a car, or how
No,
do you?
no, not how do you prepare a car. It's you nailed it. It's literally the behind the scenes preparation to not have a total loss. So I'm assuming you're picking up the phone, you're calling your agent a couple of days in advance. Hey, I'm thinking about doing this HPD event. What kind of policies can we look at? And then I'm assuming your agent will be the one to tell you what your options are as far as the vehicle you want to track.
Yeah, your current policy with whoever you have it with does not cover track insurance. So the
Yeah.
moment you drive through the paddocks, there is all bets are off. There's no
Wow.
coverage. So you
So you're
have
with
to.
Geico. You think it's all fun and games.
Yep.
You're entirely on your own, basically.
Totally on your own.
And what are they going to do? What's a unnamed carrier going to do if they find out that you raced on the track without coverage?
They're going to deny your claim.
100%.
100%. They're not paying a dime.
Okay, and so if it's a $5,000 beater, you're all right. But what's the message to the people out there who think that by being quiet? Because I know guys out there that'll want to risk it, and I just want to make sure that they know what they're getting into.
You're 100% committing insurance fraud.
That's wild. That's wild. And I don't even know why you'd want to do that anyway. If you work hard and you buy something, you should protect it.
I mean, I kind of live by the mantra, just stay on the up and up, keep everything above board, keep your hands above the table, and if
do the right thing.
If you bite it on track, know that is a risk that you're taking, but for the most part, you've got to really be in a mental headspace to just be out of control to do something like that, or you have to have a car that is not prepared for driving that hard, and then you have a mechanical failure. But barring those two activities, you're going to go out there and you're going to have a good time.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the place to take a car and drive it fast, not on the street. So I've had some recent experiences in the last year or more where I've been able to take out my car and been in other cars that have been driven really hard, and I cannot think of a better way to enjoy your car that's a high performance car than doing it safely with an instructor on a track. I am a huge advocate for that.
Tell us a little bit about your personal racing experience. You dived in. You just got into racing like a year ago, and you're out there, man.
Total rookie. I'm not going to pretend that I'm better than I am. I'm learning. But I bought a Subaru BRZ TS. Now, if you don't know what that is, because a lot of people don't, it's the twin car for the GR86. So the Toyota GR86, it's the exact same car. They're just manufactured with a different badge. So
what's yours in? Because people will remember the FRS, the BRZ, and the GR86 came out together, but yours is actually a different trim level.
Mine is a TS, which basically just it's a stupid moniker that Subaru put on the car that means tuned by STI. Basically, mine just has a little bit of a different suspension tweak, some different parts on it. But the main differentiator on my car is it comes with the big brake kit from Brembo.
Oh, okay.
So
that's
it's
cool.
A lot of people, when they start tracking these cars, that's one of the first mods that they do is they put a big brake kit on it. And mine came with it out of the box. So
did you have to replace your pads, or are you running stock?
I did.
Pads?
Yeah, I put a track, sort of a streetable track pad on my car after the first few events, and saw a noticeable difference. For driving it around every day, you probably wouldn't want something like that because they're a little more noisy and they create brake dust like crazy. But on a track, they bite. That's what
great.
you want. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been awesome seeing you out there, man. A couple of days ago, I was like, hey, let me take the camera out to the track.
It's fun.
Trackside photos for me are one of my favorite types of photos to shoot, man. When cars you get the blurry background and stuff, but then it's like not a stranger on the track. It's like one of your boys. So it just makes it even cooler.
It's been a lot of fun. I mean, there's a lot of cars out there that are way faster than my car. They're way more expensive, but mine's a manual. It's a 6-speed manual. I'm learning how to drive the car. I'm driving the car right there on the edge, right where
Hmm.
the limit of grip is. I'm learning car control. I'm learning how to heel toe at full speed into a really tight turn. So
Wow.
when I get to a point where my life allows me to buy a car that's, twice the horsepower, twice the price tag, I'm just going to be that much better of a driver. So I know that people feel like they're going to go out there and be the best track guy, the hero on the track. They're going to be the fastest, and it's just bragging rights. Um, I would say that if you could have a little bit of humility and get yourself in a slower car and learn how to drive it fast and maintain
Hmm.
momentum, arguably you're going to have a better time. Uh, but it's definitely going to make you a better driver. There's no question about that.
Dude, I say the same thing all the time. It's a great point. When I built my simulator, a lot of my buddies started wanting to come over and just learn. Most of them have never driven stick before. You've got this little thing with a clutch, and then so that's the novelty side of just having a simulator. But for me, similar to you, I care a lot more about the dynamics of the car and car control and all that stuff. Simulator's a great way to practice.
Yeah, I
Sim is
need
a
one.
great way to practice. Yeah, you do. And
It's a
honestly,
lot.
man, your guys' office needs one. If I could,
Yeah, that'd be
maybe
fun.
I could build you guys one.
That'd be fun. I think we could have that conversation. That'd be a lot of fun.
An office rig.
Yeah, an office rig. Like, where did everybody go? Well, they're in the break room playing on the
Nobody's
side.
writing policies. Everyone's just racing.
I can't get a
So
hold of anybody today. What's going on?
where all have you insured vehicles? Are you coast to coast, or do you specialize in a particular market? How can folks, if they want to talk to you about, let's say, getting a policy for their 911
Yeah,
GT3, and
we're
they live in
licensed.
Montana?
So yeah, in Montana, we're licensed in just about every state. So I
Wow,
have clients uh, in almost every state. There's a couple that we don't, but more than likely we're not going to find anybody like in some of the smaller states where there's just no population.
for sure, for
So
sure.
we only maintain the licenses in states that we write a lot of business. It just makes sense. But I've got clients top to bottom, east coast to west coast. Um, I mean, you name it. And then I think you mentioned the Montana thing. That's a whole other conversation that we can have too. But we do that too. The
I run
Montana,
into it all the time. People are like,
yeah,
"Yep, we'll talk about it."
The Montana LLC thing. I think that and we may be seeing less of that, but it's still a thing. People are still registering their cars in Montana through a business
Hmm.
LLC. We do that all the time.
And just so people are clear, the car does not have to be located in Montana. Your business has to be located in
Right.
Montana,
You have
and
to
the
have a
business is the entity.
right,
They treat the business like it's a person.
right. Yep. Exactly right.
So let's go into something a little bit more fun. Let's say you had your pick, right? You've got
Oh, jeez.
five car garage. What's in Josh's 5 car
Oh,
garage?
5 car. Oh, geez.
You want to do three? That might arguably that
I
might be
mean, I'm
tougher.
not going to turn down 2 extra cars for sure, but
Exactly. Yeah. Keep it
I'm
up. I'll go 10.
this is going to make the conversation just that much longer. But the wife's got to have something to drive. She's always wanted a G wagon, and
Oh my goodness, who doesn't?
I think that like the what is it, the G squared? The really jacked up one. I think that they're absolutely ridiculous,
Sure.
but in a cool way.
The
So
the 4x4 with
yeah, the four by
the
four squared.
dude.
So we'll take care of her first, and then I think I got to have something that I can get passengers in for myself. Um, I mean, you could shoot for the moon on this, but I think like a realistic car that I could drive I wouldn't just get totally freaked out to drive in Dallas traffic and leave in a parking garage somewhere. And I'm gonna get this wrong, but the Audi, is it an RS6 Avant? Is that the wagon one?
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, we were
just a
lucky enough to finally get them here.
just a sweet, just cool dad wagon you can throw stuff in the back of and just have a good time. And it's very utilitarian. It's like a Swiss Army knife of a
I'm gonna
dad
pull up a
car.
picture for the folks at home.
Yeah, so it's just this cool European wagon that's also a supercar, right? They're what, 650 horse, all-wheel drive, probably twin
Well,
turbo.
so the one that we never got in the States, which was just a complete nightmare. I grew up loving these cars. It was a V10 wagon, the RS Avant V10. We never got them here, but we do get this guy. This is the one we get here in the States. This
Yeah,
is the
that's the
Josh
one.
Mobile.
Yeah, that's the
So
one.
can you imagine that with a V10?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
R.I.P.
So,
But dude,
all
that's
right.
awesome. So would you throw a ski rack on it too
Yeah,
for road
ski
trips?
rack and like like the roof box, so you can put all your crap in it. Like when you road trip it. Yeah,
That's what I'm talking about.
that'd be the car that I would probably drive just the tires off of it. Just rack up miles, road trip it. I mean, I think that'd be a great car to have to just use every day.
Absolutely,
Um,
dude. Absolutely.
um,
Great choice.
let's see. Then I got to get just a crazy track car, right? Because I think that
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten completely bitten by the bug. I'm super addicted to getting out and doing track days. So I mean, I think like what everybody probably thinks, I'm going to be the 16-year-old in the room, but I think like the GT3 RS is just like a god tier track car.
Uh-huh.
I think that would be so fun.
And I think with your skill level now that you're kind of going from a beginner to an intermediate driver, that's when it should no longer scare you to track cars of that level. It should excite you because now you are approaching cars that can get you into serious trouble if you're not
Right.
there, which will basically motivate you to work on your own crafts,
Sure.
your race craft.
Right.
The GT3 RS is a great choice, man.
I've always wanted one. I mean, they've always been one of those cars that's like a, if you could have any car, that's always been on the list for the last, gosh, since they came out with the RS in the early 2000s, right? Like the 996 version. I was like,
Absolutely, yeah.
man, this is like such a cool car. I'd love to have something like this, or even just the opportunity to drive one fast, right?
Fast, yeah, yeah.
So cool. I mean, I've had a chance to drive a few now, and they scratch the itch for sure.
Dude, it's weird because I like you. I've also gotten a chance to drive them, but never on a racetrack. So every owner I've ever spoken to says, yeah, unfortunately, the way that it drives around town is nothing like what it handles on the track,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, you just won't be able to experience that. The gearbox, the tires, the way that it shifts gears, everything comes alive once the car is hot.
Yeah.
None of those fluids going through the transmission and the engine are really like you're around town. You're like, brr, brr.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
at 8,500, that's a different story.
Yep. Yep. Once you've gone through a couple laps and you've stood on the brakes with both feet, yeah,
You're like every
yep.
time you come to stop.
Yep.
My
Once
M5, man, I had carbon pads on that thing with the steel rotors. It hated it. It was so noisy, but then I would come off of a highway and like just downshift from 7, like and just
yeah.
like really heat them up, and then boom, quiet as a mouse.
Yep. Nope. No problems. Yeah. That's
Speaking of that M5, I hate to talk about myself for a little bit, but what do you think about the V10 M5? We don't see them a lot at your events. I
you
think
sure
you've got
don't.
two. I
Yeah, we
think you've
don't
got
see
two
them very
clients that bring
often.
them. I think there's one or two that come to your show, but that's about it. It was
Yeah,
one of my favorite
you'll
cars.
see one or two every now and then. I think they're super cool. I mean, I've always thought they were cool. I mean, you put a V10 in a sedan, that's
Family car missile.
yeah, come on, that's cool. But yeah, you don't see them. It's a shame, but it kind of goes back to what we're talking about with the whole some of these guys like my age, maybe a little older, like you're starting to kind of you go back to what was cool when you couldn't afford it, right?
Oh, sure.
Right. So you sort of hedge back to those cars in the 90s that you always wanted, you always thought was cool, but you were 16 and you couldn't afford a $50,000-$60,000 car, right?
So could that potentially be something that I mean I have my list of it's a very confidential list in my brain of cars that
Oh,
I
okay.
think 5 to 10 years from now I'm going to be advising on. Do you think for our audience listening, do you think the V10 M5 could maybe not right now. Maintaining one is a little bit tough, and you have to know what you're doing with those engines. However, if you talk to a BMW technician, there is a magic formula to keeping those cars on the road and keeping them on the road reliably. So do you think there's a possibility that those old V10 M5, those old BMW V10s are going to be worth a lot of money?
Yeah, there's a huge collectability factor in those cars. I think that they're gonna be popular for forever.
My
I mean,
car's sticker was 108. I bought it for under 30.
wow, that's crazy. Yeah, that I'd love to have the car value talk with you at some point. I saw a car the other day. It was like about a 10-year-old AMG GT, and
Mhm.
that was probably about 150, $160,000 sticker car new,
Yep.
and that's about a $60,000 to $70,000 car now.
It's amazing, and here's the crazy part. I'm glad you mentioned the AMG GT. We have to remind ourselves what car that car was replacing. What car did it replace? Do you remember?
Was it the SL?
The SLS,
SLS.
the Gullwing. Those
That's right.
cars
Yeah,
today.
yeah, that's right.
First of all, if you're lucky enough to see one of those SLSs, you're like, oh my gosh, that car's stuck in time. In 2011, I remember in 2011, I saw my first one. They had a launch color. It might have not even been a launch color. It was a flat grayish bronze, matte, a matte grayish bronze for the SLS. And oh, dude, I fell in love. And then the AMG GT comes out, super long front end. It's a front mounted mid engine car, so you
Yeah,
have a stupid long hood. But they got rid of the gull wings, and
yeah,
I think that's why the car is not. It's worth 60K today instead of 200, where
yeah,
the SLS is. Theoretically speaking, there's no difference. It was just a older brother, but they got rid of something that made it special.
yeah. You're
The
right.
gull wing doors. Why would you
And
have
it's
ever done
and
that?
it's so funny. There's usually going to be like one key feature of a car that makes it special. So I'll give you another example that sort of re-edifies my point here.
Yeah.
Looking at the same place, the same dealership had a roughly 10-year-old first generation Audi R8 V10 Plus with a, say it with me out loud.
V10.
Yeah,
Oh,
V10.
gated manual.
There you go. That was the main crux of the argument, right? That car was about a 160 car, new
Mm-hmm.
MSRP. That's a 250 car now. So you're in the
What does that
money.
tell us?
Yeah, I mean, low mileage R8 V10 Plus with a 6-speed gated manual transmission, like that's everybody you and my age that was a poster car, right?
Well,
Like
that's
that
why
was.
so many people are converting their Ferraris right now. There's a huge underground Ferrari conversion community.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't know if I can say their name on the pod. I won't, but they're in Texas. There's a very big company in Texas that is
It's one of my
literally
clients. I know him well.
really.
Yeah,
Dude, I salivate at the mouth. Every
yeah.
single day they are converting a new Ferrari into a manual, which means that just moving forward as these
So,
exchange hands, we're gonna see gated manuals
yep,
in the for
you're gonna see
sale.
it a lot. So let me tell you, in my opinion, driving a gated manual straight piped Ferrari F430,
Oh, stop! Oh, that's
it's just as
exactly
fun as
it.
driving a brand new 296. I
And it'll
mean,
blow your eardrums out too. A straight pipe 430 with that the what is that exhaust? The
yeah,
tubey exhaust. The what?
yeah, just
What?
like that. Yeah. So I mean, and it all kind of comes back to the driving experience, right? You can go super fast in a brand new 296, and it'll be the fastest car you ever driven, and it's almost as fast as an SF90
Mm-hmm.
for 300 grand, right?
Yeah,
In the 300s. And I mean, that's a big ticket car, right? I'm not being a crazy person. 300,000 is a lot of money, but
100%.
you can have the same amount of fun, and you may even have the same Ferrari enthusiast, a diehard that says, man, I'd love to have like a 550 Maranello with a manual transmission, or a 430, or a 360 Modena,
599.
or 360 Modena with a 6-speed manual, right?
Yeah.
Those are the cars that I'm seeing my collectors look for. So, I mean, I've got a recent example with a client that's got a great collection. He really waited and found the right 360 Modena Spider in the right color, the right interior color with the gated manual, and he paid top dollar for it.
Wow.
because that's what he wanted. It's a whole different driving experience, right? So rather than
Mhm.
necessarily just going fast and spooling up your turbos and your hybrid kicks in and now you got 900 combined horsepower, maybe you just want to go grab a cup of coffee with the wife and just roast some gears, and it's a whole different driving experience. You want to feel the torque, and you want to feel the clutch bite, and
Mhm.
you want to like rev it out to 7,000-8,000 RPMs in a
You may
gear,
want
right?
to smell something too, as silly as it sounds.
Yeah,
Those old
I mean,
Ferraris, old
it's a
Porsches.
thing. It's a thing for sure.
Yeah. So
So
it sounds like a manual 430 will definitely be in your garage at one point.
I would not discount that at all. I mean, I
Yeah,
yeah, I wouldn't look past that at all. I
man.
think for me, 550 Maranello is probably the sweet one for me. I
What that's
always,
interesting. What about the Maranello specifically do you like? Because you
I
really,
think for
they kind of
me,
left
it was the style. I just love the body lines of it. It
from
was
the
that,
back where the trunk goes like this, and then you just have the two tail lights.
and it's like if you're going 10, 20 years backwards in Ferrari, you're not getting a fast car by today's comparisons. So
Hmm.
it's like, why don't, instead of getting a rowdy Ferrari, get an elegant Ferrari that's a Grand Touring car,
Oh,
right?
okay, yeah.
You can put a couple bags in and drive it for 1,000 miles, and have a little bit of a different experience than one that's just rowdy, right?
The older Ferraris, in my opinion, one, they're easier to get. So obviously, if you can't, and it's the whole philosophy. It's like if you can't own two Ferraris, you can't afford one. But these new ones, well, who can afford one?
Not me.
Yeah, so like you have to have a little trade-off. If you want to get into the Ferrari, if you want to get into a Ferrari, if you want to start your Ferrari ownership journey, because it's not really that's one of the few manufacturers where it's not just buying the car. You're kind of the car is your entrance into a world, and then that
Yeah,
world might give you experiences that you may or may not have
sure.
otherwise had. So if you can afford yourself a Maranello, like a 550, that Maranello alone might change your life to where you can now start to dabble in newer Ferraris simply because of the lifestyle change that older Ferrari may have given you. You've got an old Ferrari, so now by design you can get access to some of the special events. You start talking
Mm,
to other Ferrari owners. One guy might teach you, hey, if you just switch to this type of oil instead of this one, you get, 10,000 more miles out of the car. Or maybe he puts you in touch with his shop that's a Ferrari specialist that you would have otherwise never found. And now you have a way to service your old Ferrari without breaking the bank. I think
right.
there's tons of reasons to still look into those old cars, especially us in Dallas. I mean, in my opinion, I think we have one of the best, sort of classic supercar repair service shops in the state, if not the country.
Yep. I know exactly who you're talking about too.
Should we give them a shout out? They have a great reputation.
Yeah, we're talking Norwood, right?
Yep,
Yep. Yeah,
Norwood.
they do a great job. They're
It's because to my knowledge, and to tell me if I'm wrong, I've never physically stepped foot in that shop, but they don't just service road cars. They have literally race cars that they prep.
yeah, they have a whole side of their garage that's nothing but race car prep. I mean, you may go in there and see a couple of challenge cars or some FXX cars or whatever that
I think it's important that
People drive them still. So,
yeah, people still drive them. I think it's important that people realize that those cars aren't just in museums. Like there's a whole world out there where your average classic supercar can pretty much be enjoyed like a normal car. I mean, let me ask you this: how many clients do you have still that drive their classics relative to their new stuff?
I would say the majority. I would say maybe 90% of the clients that I insure drive their cars.
And when you
Um,
talk to them about their classics, is maintenance or service as big of an issue as it is for retaining the value?
um, yeah, maintenance and service kind of goes hand in hand with them because they're trying to preserve it. If it's somebody that's, um, I mean, you've kind of got two different schools of thought, right? You've got somebody that's driving an old hot rod and they don't mind it being kind of a rat rod, and
Hmm.
they just go and drive the tires off of it, and they want a supercharger sticking up out of the hood or something. That's fine. They want something that they can wrench on and drive hard. That's cool. they're going to service that themselves.
Yeah.
Right. That's the shade tree mechanic that doesn't mind getting their hands greasy and doing it themselves. And then you've got a whole different category of clients that they've got more cars than they can possibly service themselves. So they usually will have somebody that helps to kind of keep a service schedule, and they'll transport cars, maybe one or two or three at a time, the enclosed trailer situation, take it over to a mechanic, drop it off, go through all the annual service schedule, the recommended service intervals, and they bring them back. So there's two different types of clients that that service their vehicles, but I would say that the ones that are really into maintaining like meticulous service records on their cars, they're probably not doing it themselves, but it is a very, very important component of maintaining the value of that car, because they're showing not only initiative, but they're showing we're doing the recommended service intervals on this car. So
yeah, because documenting that is so important. I mean,
especially on your guys, like your Ferrari guys. I'm looking at you Porsche guys, because you guys are super nerds on this stuff. Like, y'all get way into the weeds with this, but service intervals on your old Porsche air-cooled cars, they want to they want to see it. They want to know your mechanic's date of birth and social security number, and they're going to sniff it out one way or another and make sure that you got it done.
That's hilarious, dude.
Yeah.
Hey, so speaking of classics, would we find anything classic in your 5-car garage, Josh?
I'm sorry, we had a little glitch there for a second. Would you mind repeating your question?
Yeah. Speaking of classics, would we find anything classic in your ideal 5-car garage?
Yeah, I would love to have some old car. I think classic for me would be, like an old Camaro, like an old muscle car or something like that. I would always love to have something like that. But you kind of touched on it, like the sound of a real big clunky cam and the smell of rich gas that you just don't
through the frame of the car. Like it's not leaking gasoline. It is literally just
raw, almost not even burned fuel that you're smelling as you're backing it out of your driveway. Just something that kind of thumps the pavement a little bit, kind of makes your heart feel like it's gonna skip a beat, because it's just a big, like a big block Camaro or Corvette or something like that.
Like a '67 GT500.
Or like a Boss 9 Mustang or something like that would be super cool. Just something like that. I think I'm more of in the vein of that kind of classic. I know some people get like way into the pre-war stuff. They want a Duesenberg or some old like Delahaye or something. Those are cool.
Citroen.
I can't. I mean, that's a whole different type of car experience where it's like, you're spending the day with that car, right?
Yes. Yeah.
You're going to take it to the concourse. You're going to roll it out on the grass. You're going to roll out the red carpet and have champagne. And that's the car that you drive once a year, right?
100%. Yep.
Because you can't drive it on the street because there's no brakes. You can't really drive it at night because the headlights, you can't see anything.
Sure.
And you got these older guys that love those cars, and they're old and don't have the maybe situational awareness or the agility to avoid an accident in a car like that.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, and that's not being disrespectful. I'm just saying, like, the guys that want a Delahaye are going to be the older guy that, octogenarians probably, right?
It's going to be a tough car for sure, because I mean, everything else around you has direct injection. They speed up quickly and they slow down quickly. These cars, I mean, to get them to 25 miles per hour, it requires maybe 300 feet.
Yep.
Perfect example, the Model T market used to be, because Ford made a little over 1 million Model Ts at the time, so they were everywhere. But the problem is just like, it's not functionally, it's functionally like realistic.
Not user friendly.
No, to crank start the car and all these types of things. And they had a fuel, how right now, like in race cars nowadays, you just have a fuel pump switch on the dash. Well, back then it was actually under the car. You would have to manually like flip
Mm.
like it was actually not a it wasn't a switch because it wasn't electric. It was like hydraulic or pneumatic or something, but it was something on the bottom of the engine under the actual Model T
Mm.
that you had to do before you could even get fuel going to the engine.
Yeah, I mean, we're in a day and age where we can get the answer to any question, or we can have our groceries delivered to our house in 30 minutes. We don't live in that world anymore. Like the inconvenience of driving like a really old, when I say classic, like an old car.
20, 30, 40.
Yeah, like pre-war or just in that kind of era. I just don't think we don't live in that world anymore. And I'm a car enthusiast, and I don't seem to have the type of appreciation for those cars. Not because I don't like them or know what they are or
Yeah.
appreciate the beauty and the craftsmanship in it. It's just not usable.
And we also didn't grow up with them. That
We didn't
we
grow up
didn't
with it.
experience them, you
Right.
know. So we don't know where I guess they would have shined or where they didn't shine. I certainly don't see like a 1930s Mercury going off roading anytime soon.
Right.
But you do see some advertisements from the 40s where there's like a family photo. They're on the beach with their bubbly Fender car. So
Right.
maybe they swapped out tires and then took these things on the beach. A whole different world than the automotive thing existed at one point.
But it's a real it's a little curious because when you ask somebody that's, let's say, um over 30 years
Hmm.
old, you say, well, you're gonna have a classic car in your garage. What is it, right? We think classic cars like 60s muscle cars, right?
Absolutely.
We don't think like 1930s and 40s like classic cars like that. No,
No.
that's not even on my list. It's not on my radar.
Well, I think my sister's generation, the 1990s Integras and Civics would be considered classics because they're, that's 30 years in their rear view.
So it'll be real interesting, especially from the perspective of talking car values and collectability. What happens to these cars after a generation of owners is no longer interested in them, right?
Hmm.
So, or I mean, they're not accessible to us because they're so astronomically valued because of what they are, you
Yeah.
know. Um, and we don't even know what they are, right? In a lot
Good
of
point.
cases, yeah,
Dude, so we spent a lot of time talking about pretty big variety of stuff. So if somebody is just getting into the world of nice vehicles, you had your big break in your career and you're ready to talk to someone about maybe the next step. They talk to me about what car is going to be right for their family. We've isolated something like I'll just give you a perfect example right now. If we just came up with something like a Lamborghini Huracan, and you need to go about exploring your insurance options. One,
sure.
how does somebody get in touch with you? Two, what can they expect that experience to be like? What's the timeline like? What are they going to be doing when they talk to you?
Um, I when they're working with me, so I have a lot of different tools available to use for a car like that. I'm going to ask them how they're going to use the car. If it's going to be something that they're going to commute in every day, that's a
Mm-hmm.
different proposition than kind of what we've been talking about for the last hour, it being a truly collector car that they're going to see, minimal miles on. They're going to hang on to it. They're going to just use it for weekend cars and coffee, pleasure, date night with the wife sort of thing. That's a whole different product that we offer that has a very specific kind of terms and conditions that we can do for that type of vehicle.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask them how they're going to use the car, who's in the household, who's going to drive it, does it stay inside of a garage? And then obviously we're going to talk to them a little bit about their insurance history in the past. Do they have any of
Mm.
those tickets or accidents or, God forbid, like a major violation, like a DUI or a major accident or something? We want to
Sure.
know that stuff. We want to know who we're doing business with.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, likewise, we're going to be transparent and we're going to try to advise you on, hey, this carrier does this. You can expect an actual cash value settlement on a total loss on this car. They don't pay for original factory parts. They're going to be limited on the amount that they're going to pay for uh, a service tech or a mechanic or a body shop per hour. Those are the things that you're going to have to think about. Or do you want to pay a little bit of money to have OEM parts and a guaranteed replacement value on this car, even in the event that we talk about you bought a car that may be appreciated in value, right?
Right.
So those are the things that we're going to talk about. That gets a little deep, but generally,
no, that's good.
The way that they would get a hold of me, I'm a broker. So what that means is instead of like a Jake from State Farm that has one product to sell, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything looks like a nail when all you have is a hammer, right?
Yeah.
State Farm sells State Farm. That's fine. I'm not disparaging State Farm, but what we have is a whole toolbox full of different products that we can use and determine based on how you use the car and what the car is, we're going to find you the best product available for that scenario.
That's perfect. So instead of because I actually didn't know that there was a difference there. You're not really married to a particular policy. It's first figure out what the customer needs, and then you'll kind of tailor the package basically.
Exactly. I'll give you an example. Like, let's say that you're 16 and you bought a Mustang 5.0 versus 65 and you bought a Mustang, and it's like you said, like it's just your weekend car. That's two totally different scenarios of use, right? You've got a young driver that's going to drive it to high school every day versus a 65-year-old that's retired and is just going to take it out to the Mustang Club every couple months.
Right.
So you're talking about two totally different risks, and we've got two totally different insurance policies available to discuss. So a lot of people just don't even know that exists. Everybody's just used to going to their guy that, that their mom and dad have used for the last 40, 50 years through, AAA or State Farm, or it's their local Allstate guy that they've known forever that they go to church with.
Sure.
Nothing wrong with that. But there's other options for you that can get really granular and specific based on that individual application.
I think that's great, dude. A perfect analogy for what you're talking about is, Cheesecake Factory. If you look at their menu, they literally have everything. Like Cheesecake Factory has everything from steak to potatoes to sushi to noodles and this and that and potato. Like, how can you specialize in all foods? If you offer everything, it's going to be 50% quality, whereas if you offer one thing, it's going to be 100%. But you also can kind of, in a way, basically just make buckets, right? Like, you've got your classic bucket, you got your supercar bucket, you got your sports car bucket, you got your luxury car bucket, instead of just saying, you know what, this policy is just going to cover all your cars.
Right. Something's getting
work. Your SUV policy should not be the same as your Lamborghini.
Exactly.
You need to literally get into each one individually, have that conversation.
And when you kind of lump everything onto the same shelf, something's getting missed. Something's there's a shortcut somewhere. So, with that being said, I guess like to sort of summarize it, we just try to curate a quote based off of the person and what they need. Excuse me.
Yeah, that's pretty much right. I mean, that's kind of what we do in the consulting business too. It's one of those things, guys. Like, if you have a budget that you want to stay in, it's important to talk to an expert before you just start diving into stuff. Don't go Googling, like, hey, what kind of policy do I need for this? Just pick up the phone and call, whether it's myself for a purchase or whether it's Josh for a policy. You really don't know until you talk to somebody, because if you don't customize something that fits you could potentially be shooting yourself in the foot or just leaving cash on the table. And right now things are already extremely expensive. Every dollar counts. And so if by talking to someone to customize you a package versus just going for a one size fits all option, it's almost always guaranteed to bite you in the butt a little bit. So that's why I wanted to bring Josh on. And dude, you covered like everything I wanted to know about how does this go on in the background. We see these exotic cars on the road. We know they're insured, because you'd be foolish to drive a supercar without insurance. But how does that work? And so now I think we know how that works. How can someone get in touch with you if they've got more questions?
So
we'll put a link in the bio, obviously, to Josh's Instagram page. If you guys haven't seen Josh's Instagram page, just get ready. Okay, everything
Mhm.
from his personal racing to the cars that he insures, he's really good about actually teasing us a little bit with the cars he insures. I'm sure they're not. I'm sure it's not all of them. Some of these cars and these
Yeah,
customers
I'm
probably
actually
do want.
I don't post a lot. I need to do a little bit better about that. But social media, you can get a hold of me. It's just insurance. Excuse me, insurance Josh. I'm sorry, insurance dot Josh. Um, you'll see my picture on there. You'll see some of the cars that I insure. Like Igor said, my personal car getting out on the track. If you want to get a hold of me by phone, I can give you my phone number now if you like, or you can put it in the bio or however you want to do that. But
Yeah, we'll put it in the bio.
I work for an independent insurance agency called CoVerica in Dallas, and kind of as we touched on, we have carrier relationships with dozens and dozens of different insurance companies that allow us to be able to leverage the best fit for for the client. So depending on whatever the application is, whether it's your home or your car, or your motorcycle or watercraft, or maybe you've got a collection of cars you want to talk about, just keep in mind we do all types of insurance, not just the cars. So we're a one-stop shop that allows us to we can consolidate with one giant portfolio of insurance for all of your stuff with one company, or we can piecemeal it based on each individual item. So
Wow.
um,
That's probably what people are going to find the most value in is I know just from personal experience, I'm so sick of one size fits all options. I haven't even called my insurance people in forever just because I know they're because every year I like to check in. I'm 1 year older, I'm 1 year smarter, I'm 1 year
yeah,
wiser. Hey, what can you guys do for me? Well, unfortunately, okay, okay,
and
okay.
that's wise, and that's what we do. We obviously we're looking at the market every day because we're shopping the market every day, so we know what carriers are um, have an appetite for this type of house or this type of car or in this region, whose whose rates are going high like crazy and who's canceling policies, and who really wants to have a large piece of that pie in that area. We know that because we do it every day.
Sure.
So it's wise that you're looking at that and reevaluating that insurance policy annually, and that's what me and my team do. So um, if you were a client, that's what we're going to do before your renewal comes up. We're going to say, hey, Igor, this is kind of what's changing in the market. Give you a quick snapshot of, hey, maintain a holding pattern. This is still the right carrier to be with, and here's why. Versus, hey, this
Hmm.
doesn't look good. Let's try to find you another option.
It's not just policy based. It's there's an advisory element to it.
Absolutely,
You
it's
guys
all
consult
advisory.
your clients and then
Yeah, we're
set them
we're
up for success.
consultants on it.
That's dude. Yeah, I mean, I'm really glad we have you guys here in Dallas because I think our car community here is a little bit too big to not have you. But yeah, dude, thank you so much for coming on the show. I like I the business that you occupy is much larger than I think we all realize. And yeah, I think it's just important to talk to somebody before you make a decision. I know from my business on the consulting side, but you are like an out. Anyone can be 1 hour away from making a detrimental decision for their whole
Yeah,
family just by not having that conversation. So we're gonna link everything to you guys. I think it's important that people get in touch with you before they make that decision.
sure.
That's gonna affect their financial future. But they're also cars. I mean, we drive them. We put our lives on the line to enjoy these things, and so just be safe out there when you're on the road. Be safe. Make smart decisions. Take care of what you have. These are expensive toys, quite frankly. So just make sure all your ducks are in a row before you go out there and enjoy them on the track or on the street.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of good agents out there. There's a lot of good consultants. I would always just recommend find somebody that you jive with, maintain a relationship with that person, and just be transparent, be candid, and be humble and listen because they do this a lot and they're experts in what they do, and leverage that information because it'll help you make a good decision.
Hmm. Well, with that being said, guys, let's get this episode wrapped up. Josh is a family man. I'm sure he's got a wonderful day ahead of him to get to. We probably will have this out as the next episode. So season episode 2 drops today. I hope you guys are all really excited to listen to that. Make sure you give us a follow, a like, subscribe on all your favorite listening platforms. And then this episode will be live next Sunday. We'll see you guys every Sunday at 11. Premieres every Sunday at 11. We're based out of here in Texas. Josh, thank you so much for coming on
Thanks,
the
man.
show,
It's been
man.
a long time coming. I'm really happy to see
Yeah,
you.
man. And these live recordings that we're going to keep going. We're going to keep doing these live recordings with guests. And just maybe this summer when Josh's event kicks into gear, we may be featured live from the car show.
Open invitation, man. Love to have you.
Yeah, we've got to show the folks what we're talking about here. We're gonna have, maybe, I don't know. We'll talk about it to see how it's all gonna play out. But I really want to have some sort of visual presence at the event just to show the audience what kind of cars we're actually
going to be
about.
a lot more interesting to look at than my face. I promise.
Yes, us both. So, with that being said, thank you guys so much. That's another episode of Auto Talks, and we are out.
Peace out.